I promised this audience, despite the president being here, we would never let our own government get away with doing what they're doing, frankly. And I don't know about you sitting at home, but I think that the Prime Minister will be breathing a sigh of relief today because he'll be hoping that we'll all be forgetting about what's going on in our own country for a moment. And because it's not very good, isn't it? It's carnage and karma for Keir Starmer. Prime Minister Keir Starmer, didn't you say it was only the last government that could waste millions of pounds on a removals policy that doesn't remove anyone?
Spending £400 million on a plan not to get anybody to Rwanda whilst losing 4,000 people is not a plan. It's a farce. Only this government could waste hundreds of millions of pounds on a removals policy that doesn't remove anyone.
Well, how the tables turn, Keir, because the breaking news tonight, for the third day in a row, no migration deportation flights will take off tomorrow after an Eritrean migrant won his legal bid to have his removal temporarily blocked. Didn't we say it here first? A judge tonight granted a temporary last-minute injunction barring the removal of the 25-year-old on a flight to France at 9 a.m. tomorrow after the Channel migrant claimed he would be destitute if he was returned to third world country, clearly Paris. The Telegraph are also reporting tonight that at least 7 migrants due to be deported under the one-in, one-out deal, which is more like 50 in, none out, are now mounting legal challenges. So, of course, it'll be the third day of this one-in, one-out deal with pound shop Napoleon, Emmanuel Macron, and a grand total of 0 migrants will have taken off on flights to France. We all knew it, didn't we? We said it was going to happen, and as usual, we've been proven right. And who's to blame for this farce? It's your old pals. That's who care. Human rights lawyers and those far-left charities you've spent your career cozying up to and now tying your hands with legal threats. The Telegraph reports 90 Channel migrants detained since August are being coached by these activist lawyers to dodge deportation using the Prime Minister's, of course, own handbook. The spokesman for the French pro-migrant group, and I'm going to butcher this, but it's Auberge des Migrants, crowed this. There were a lot of people who responded to this campaign and agreed to send emails asking for this collaboration with the government to be stopped. And they're winning, Keir. The French are beating you. This is like an old Britain when we couldn't beat the French. Your own Home Office is being forced to bend over backwards, handing out generous time extensions for migrants to lawyer up, all because of a ruling that sank the Tories' Rwanda plan. And who led the charge against the Rwanda plan? You, Keir Starmer, the human rights crusader who's now choking on his own playbook. The French aren't impressed either, are they? An Interior Ministry source told their media this: "We will be able to terminate the agreement if we do not see any benefit in it." Well, I can't imagine how they're benefiting, calling this whole grand plan experimental. Well, that's a polite way of calling it a total dud, if you ask me. Well, Starmer has built a career championing foreign rights over British workers, and now it's biting him hard on the backside. The laws he cheered for, the book he literally wrote, are strangling his government as it grasps for its last breaths of fresh air. Keir, you're not just falling off your high horse, you're crashing through the floorboards of your own failed leadership at this point. The British people deserve better than this chaotic, spineless experiment. Let's get real. It will not be long before this rudderless government decide that deportations en masse are the right way to go and that the ECHR is the next thing on their list. Because let's face it, Reform UK is setting the agenda. The right is setting the agenda. It's not you anymore, Keir Starmer. Let's bring it into my panel, shall we? No, I'll have to walk to do this. It's quite nice. I can sort of sit here and introduce. We've got Will Kingston, Ellie Wheatley, Jonathan Liss all joining me. Jonathan, I'll come to you for some balance. I'm sure you...
Oh, that'd be nice.
How about that, hey? What do you make of this one-in, one-out deal? It's already a dud, isn't it? We were told it was going to start on Monday. We now know for a third day it won't happen, probably a fourth and fifth after it. What do you think of the whole thing?
I think that if you do have a court hearing and a lawyer is able to make a case, that doesn't mean that the lawyers are trying to subvert anything. It just means that the person had a good case. And that is going to be something that the government is going to be facing again and again, because these migrants will have strong defences against being removed. And I don't think arbitrary removals, are ever the right way forward. I think that people should have their cases judged on merit. If they are deemed to be legitimate asylum seekers, then they should be able to stay. I don't think that you should have a one in, one out. And I think the whole thing was a gimmick to start with. So I have no sympathy with the government for what their travails are right now.
Jonathan is right. This will happen again and again. I'm shocked, Alex. Absolutely shocked. If there is one thing that today has told us, and to be fair, we probably already knew this, it is that you cannot solve the illegal migrant crisis without rescinding the legal framework that has enabled it for years now. The simple reality in this country is that we have a web of human rights laws that are very vague and can be interpreted by activist judges in order to stop the will of the parliament and therefore the will of the people. Everything else is tinkering. This will keep happening until you actually solve the fundamental problem, which is the legal framework itself, ECHR and Human Rights Act.
Ellie, the government promised to change the law on this, right? That was their grand plan, change the law.
This is the hilarious thing, is that they've been sort of timidly talking about reform of the ECHR. Shabana Mahmood, who's now the Home Secretary, said back in June, it was a very mild suggestion that maybe we should reform our relationship. And of course, Richard Hermer, Starmer's very close friend, actually I think one Downing Street source put it to us as absurdly close, has immediately hit back and said, no, it's a political trick to leave the ECHR. These are all friends of Starmer, these human rights lawyers. We will never, under this government, have any reform of the ECHR. And the thing is that we will have deportations blocked over and over again because of our ties to ECHR and through the Human Rights Act, which enshrines the ECHR into our laws. And of course, lawyers will use these loopholes to prevent their client from being deported, because that is literally their job. I mean, there'd be a bad lawyer if they didn't try. And there will always be lawyers and judges who will rule on this. And until we release our, being shackled to the ECHR, then any sort of little crackdown that Labour attempt to have on illegal immigration will just be doomed to fail.
What we see time and time again is it's nothing to do with the ECHR when these rulings come. It's our own law, and it's not necessarily because of ECHR being sort of embedded in UK law through the Human Rights Act. It's also Britain's own human rights architecture, which I'm very glad that we have, by the way. And if we were able to leave the ECHR, I very much hope that we would have a very, very firm and solid human rights architecture in this country as well.
What about disapplying the Human Rights Act from immigration cases? That would help solve this issue.
Human rights, they're either human rights or they're not human rights. They apply to human beings.
At what point does our human right get trumped by someone else's human right?
Well, I think that's obviously a long-running theme of human rights discourse, but the fundamental point is that human beings, on account of being human beings, have rights. So if you only make them applicable to British citizens, for example, as Farage wants, it makes the whole thing a mockery.
And do you know where that human rights discourse originates from?
It originates from revolutionary France.
No, it originates from the English common law. Since the Magna Carta onwards, this country's done more than any other to develop human rights. And you don't need a Human Rights Act to actually establish that, because it's already established in the English common law. If you take away the Human Rights Act tomorrow, you don't lose human rights in this country. And to be honest, it's not doing a very good job of establishing many human rights.
I don't think that if you look at 17th century history, we were doing so well on the human rights front.
Fine. Say what you want, but the fact of the matter is we do not need a human rights legislation in order to enshrine human rights in this country.
I think is there not a point here that this deal was rushed as a result, as a knee-jerk decision to reform UK's polling? Because of course the Prime Minister must have known this was going to happen. We all knew it was going to happen.
I mean, these are also really unserious numbers. Ministers were hoping for maybe 50 returns a week when there are several hundred crossing the Channel every week. And also, by the way, the government doesn't even have a benchmark figure to measure the success of this pivot.
How many people was Rwanda scheme going to have?
The point is that this one in, one out deal is no deterrent whatsoever. Yes, the Rwanda scheme did not take off, and as Starmer was saying, it cost the taxpayer billions of pounds. But at least it provided some sort of deterrent. I mean, the Irish Prime Minister at the time was saying, oh my gosh, we have, migrants flooding to Ireland to avoid being sent off on a plane to Rwanda, even though the flights didn't really take off.
Yeah.
I mean, I think actually a couple of voluntary ones.
Boat crossings are still...
They were actually a little bit down, I believe, in that period of time, but not entirely zero. But this is the thing, right? The French are calling this an experiment. That's their own words. This is what the French Interior Ministry are saying. And they're saying, we'll just get rid of it if we don't like it. Because this is what's going to happen. They knew it was going to fail.
Also,
Keir Starmer, being a human rights lawyer, knew it was going to fail. We all knew it was going to fail. So it was just this short-term little bit of a tease to say that they're doing something, knowing full well that this is exactly what was going to happen, hence why they've been trying to keep it as quiet for as long as possible.
Yeah, of course. There's also the right of the French to veto particular refugees if they don't want them, or illegal migrants,
dangerous ones, dangerous refugees, criminals. Yeah. What happened? What kind of an incentive is that? Why don't you land here, commit a crime as soon as you get here, and then you won't be deported back to France? I mean, how stupid.
Yeah. But this is the problem for this government. If they lie about the NHS, if they lie about economic policy, it's actually pretty hard to hold a government down for that sort of stuff. But here you can see the numbers every day. Total number of deportations, total number of arrivals. This is going to continue to hang around the neck of this government until they actually face reality. But the problem is, if there's one thing this government believes in, and Starmer believes in, and probably there's only one, it is this slavish adherence to international human rights law. It's almost like a Greek tragedy. The one thing that could actually solve this problem is the one thing that they are willing to hold on to.
Well, Ellie, this is what it comes down to, and this is why he's facing, in my opinion, so many problems in his premiership. He is a lawyer, not a leader. And I think that's a phrase we hear a lot, and I think it's becoming ever and ever true. He doesn't take ownership when things go wrong. He blames everyone. We saw reports of him blaming Morgan McSweeney, who's the guy supposedly. He blames people when this speech is written. I didn't read the Island of Strangers speech. I mean, how many more times are you going to blame other people for the buck stops with him?
I know, and the constant U-turns and scandals and sleaze. Actually, to be fair, we do have a very long list. We update of all of the scandals.
Could you send it to me, please? I'd love to read it.
I mean, it's honestly, we have to update it every week. It's exhausting. But yeah, totally. He's not a leader, and the classic Blair without the flair, and all of that.
That's being kind.
It's not even Blair without the flair. At least Blair managed to get things done, despite the fact that I didn't like it. He actually passed some human rights laws. No, I didn't like it.
You remember the Labour Party?
Back in the... I was like 17 years old.
It was after. You didn't like what Blair was doing.
I'm an adult now,
You worked for Labour after that.
What do they say, Jonathan? If you're not a socialist when you're young, you're heartless.
You can't say you didn't like it. You then worked for Labour afterwards.
When I was a child.
You worked for Labour when you were a child, Alex.
Yeah, but what's your point here?
You said you didn't like it, what Blair was doing, but then he worked for Labour afterwards.
Now, Jonathan, you might like Marmite on toast one day, and the next few weeks you might decide you hate it.
So you retrospectively don't like it?
Yes, of course I do. I'm allowed to change my mind.
In fairness, Alex, I will forever hold it against you.
Sorry, what was the question, mate?
Well, at least I'm honest about it. I don't know now, because you've tried to make this about me when I'm talking about our beleaguered Prime Minister. This is exactly what he tries to do. He's a typical socialist for you. Distract.
He is weak. He couldn't even get his welfare reforms through Parliament.
He hasn't been able to achieve anything.
This is the left of the party swirling around him, looking for his
You've reminded me of what we were talking about.
Yeah.
The Prime Minister, Jonathan, is just unable to get anything done, isn't he? He's unable to get a deal done because he's not looking at the detail. He's unable to lead his own cabinet because, of course, he cannot lead. He's not even able to lead his own his cabinet office, where his staff are seemingly holding information back from him. He is just unfit to be Prime Minister.
I don't know if the problem is that he actually believes the stuff that he says, or that he's just being very, very badly advised. I would like to think that he is a solidly progressive, decent... I've met him. He's very decent, very charming in person, good humour.
You've met him more than most Labour MPs have, apparently.
And I think that I would like to think that, I would like to think that he has a decent core, but he's being very, very badly misled and badly advised, and just trying to chase this core of voters that is never going to vote for him.
I think he just listens to the last piece of advice he was given. I mean, he's total flip-flopper. Obviously the Island of Strangers remark that he stood by, rolled out all of his ministers to stand by that comment. Then he said, actually, I regret it. Then he came out after that saying, actually, I don't regret it. You can see in Downing Street, people go, say this. Okay, wait, no, say that. And he goes, okay, yes,
He's a very anxious politician. And that's not...
Well, yes, it doesn't make it for a good Prime Minister. I mean, what was really funny is the other night, I read a report that he was trying to channel his inner Winston Churchill. Can you believe the idea of him trying to channel Winston Churchill? I just cannot even fathom it. Anyway.